Hello, everyone. Welcome to Relate to Me, or Relate to You. I'm sorry.
Just to Lula. Just relate to Lula.
Yes, just relate to me. No, welcome to Relate to You. We want to relate to you. Today's topic is the second episode of our series, This is My Conviction. Today, we're going to talk about ministry. And, how is ministry our conviction? We're going to try to relate to you. We're going to try to also describe what ministry is for us and what, we're going to go into what ministry has done for us. So to get us started, Kiss, can you describe for you what is ministry?
For me, what is ministry? I think there's two definitions for me. I think on one end, there's a biblical definition of what ministry is, which is, I can't think specifically on the scripture right now, but I'll put it on, which is the commandment that Jesus gave to his followers, which was go out, make disciples, preach the good news. I believe that's what really the core of ministry is, that our goal should be as Christians to spread the news about Jesus and to talk to people about what we believe in. So I think that's one definition. But I think on a more literal sense, it's more of, in a church setting, what are you involved in? And I think this is specifically maybe to the Western world, because I don't know what this would look like in parts of the world where they don't have a church setting like ours. But for example, you go to a church and there's different ministries or different groups that you can be a part of, children's ministry, ushers, praise team or choir, something along those lines. And everyone that is involved to these departments plays a role to pretty much make the church run. And obviously the goal is that everyone in their own way is helping to make the church work in a sense, or, function properly so that we can continue doing what the goal is, which is spreading the message about Jesus. And so I think that's the way that I would explain it. What about you?
Yes, definitely. I would agree with what the Bible says about it. She'll put the description. She'll put the Bible verse. But yes, it's pretty much we're commanded to spread the gospel, to spread the good news, to tell people Jesus loves them, and to bring hope to the world about a savior on a very specific way. It's, for me, in many ways, is sort of or perhaps maybe because that's how ministry has worked for me, it is, how do I intentionally feed myself of the body of Christ in a way, how I fellowship, how I interact with other people,
Right.
And how I lead if I'm placed in a leadership position. And so I see it as growth, personal growth.
Okay. Do you think that, ministry is a necessary part of the Christian walk or the Christian experience? And in this case, specifically to being involved in a ministry at church. I think we can both agree that we should all, it's a necessary component to speak and tell others about Jesus, because it's a specific commandment in the Bible.
Right. Mm-hmm.
But do you think that it's wrong, or you should participate in ministry, or you could not? You don't have to participate in ministry. What's your stance there?
When you say participate, does it mean be just a part of a group, or being leadership?
I would say,
or can we talk about both?
I think we can talk about both.
Both? Okay.
Yeah.
I do think that being a part of a ministry is very important. Just, if you're a youth, be a part of that youth group. Go to the hangouts. If you're a woman, or a dorca, like we call it, if you're a female, attendee, go to those meetings. You'll find out that oftentimes problems that you're going through, other women are going through.
Right.
And they've gone through, and they can help you come victorious in your walk.
Right.
And so forth for every other department or ministry. Now, should anyone, just anyone, be a leader? I'm not too sure about that.
Okay.
I do think that I do think that sometimes it is required to have a passion about a certain ministry or about a certain mission or cause, and hopefully that, you know, propels you to do better, to grow, to
Right.
influence, to you yourself be, you know what, I'm not a good leader, I can't communicate, I'm having a hard time, you know, coming up with events or whatever, and you grow from that. But I do think that if you don't have the passion but you want to somehow be a leader, it's gonna be hard. And I say this because it's happened, and it's happened to me. So I would say that yes, the ideal situation is that something grows in you, a passion grows within you, and then you go forth.
Right.
But if you're placed in a position porque you're just eager, or, you know, someone thought of you to be in that, to meet that need, I do think that también there's merit in, okay, I'm gonna step up and I'm gonna do my best and I'm going to give it my all, porque I'm not doing it for whoever thought of me, I'm doing it for the Lord.
Right.
So I do think que también hay beneficio en eso, que no está mal tampoco. Simplemente, in the ideal, sería mejor tener esa pasión desde el beginning.
Claro.
What about you?
I think it is important. I think it's important to be involved in either the group in itself or the leadership. I think I can only speak from my experience. You know, I grew up in church, so I was a part of every single ministry in our church. So children's, juniors, youth. There eventually was an adults ministry. There was a worship ministry. And then obviously working at church also is in many ways a ministry.
Right.
And so I think that as I was growing up in church, even though the church, I wouldn't say is perfect, because even the school doesn't do this perfectly. They don't always meet all the needs of the young person or whoever it is that they're serving to the best of their abilities, because you just can't meet everybody's need. But I do think that the times that I was going through different crises in my life was easier to deal with because either of the leadership that was in place, or because of the people that I was surrounded with that were also going through the same thing that I could relate with. And so I think if you're growing up in church, that's always a benefit. You know, you have an outlet, you have a support group. But I also think that, you know, now as an adult, you know, one could say, okay, well, now you're an adult. You may not need the same support because you're more mature, or you've gained skills throughout your life to figure out how to solve your problems. But I think basic camaraderie and fellowshipping or getting connected with other people is always a benefit. You know, we're humans that need others. You know, we're always going to need connection. And so even if, like, for example, now that I'm married, I'm part of the ladies ministry. And so I'm with other married women. I'm interacting with mothers. I'm not a mother yet, but I'm interacting with mothers. And so it's a different perspective. And no, I wouldn't say we're sitting around in a circle, you know, all the time and like, saying our problems and, you know, hey, this is how I deal with it. But it's in those like hangouts and different meetings that you get to know other people. You get to make friends. You get to, I mean, you make a dish because they had a potluck, and you get to be excited to showcase what you know, you know. So I think there's a lot of benefits in that basic human level of just needing others. And I think in a leadership sense, I agree with you 100%. I don't think everybody should be in leadership, not because others are better or anything like that. I just think that when you want to be in leadership, you're always going to be held to a higher standard of morality. Where being a part of a youth ministry, you know, you might be struggling with certain things, but unfortunately or fortunately, however you choose to see it, when you are in leadership, you are held to be an example. You are held to be a model for others to be able to follow. And sometimes that can come with its struggles, because, you know, as someone who was in leadership fairly young, sometimes I did have a hard time dealing with my own personal struggles and trying to be an example. But I think for the most part, having that higher standard is necessary. Just the same way that we have a standard for our teachers, our educators, our politicians, even though a lot of the times we already know there's a lot of crooked things going around. We do react when we see scandals and we see things in the news of a professional or an educator that's supposed to be out to protect. There's a standard there.
That
in
is
the
true.
same way we have that for our leadership at church, for sure, for our ministerial board and our pastors. So I think there's a benefit, because as someone who would be in leadership, you're held to hold that standard for yourself, and it pushes you to grow. But I also think that ministry is great if you want to learn to work with people. I will say that.
Which, let's stop you right there, which brings me to my other question. What do you think, what life skills or skills in general do you think you've learned through ministry?
I think personally, first and foremost, we're learning to work with different types of people. Learning to disagree, but still being able to follow through with whatever task is at hand. Because whenever you make an event or a plan or whatever it is, even in something as simple as like, we're going to do a pizza party for the youth, some people are going to agree and some people are going to disagree. I wanted Pizza Hut and we ordered, I don't know,
Toppers.
Well, you can never go wrong with toppers. And so you have to learn how to take that, and if you're like, again, I'm not trying to come off like, any type of way, but I have been in a position of leadership where I had other board of directors with me. And there were times where I had an idea and the majority disagreed with me. And then it's a test of your humility, because you might be like, well, I'm the one in charge. If I wanted to, I could trump all of y'all and say, this is how it's going to be. But your board of directors are also there to give you their 2 cents and give you guidance. And so it's also a test of your character, of like, how can I lower down my ego and my agenda of what I want to do and be able to see what's the mission in general, and let's all do something together. So I think character building, working with people, and the moral standard of trying to be an example, trying to live right, so you can, be able to show someone this is what's worked for me. So that's mine. What about you?
Multitasking. Even though I'm not a great multitasker, I can't do 2 things at the same time.
You've improved though a lot.
But
She has. I have to tell them about us talking. I have to. Okay, so working with Lula was hilarious, because I don't think anyone can multitask, for the record. I think their studies have proven that you can't really do 2 things at once effectively, but we can get by. I think I've gotten pretty well at trying to multitask, because a lot of what I do is repetitive. And so I would be inputting numbers and I already memorized the key. So I'm putting numbers into, my software, and I'm like, so how was your day? And then I'll tell her, oh my God, this happened. And then blah, 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 and blah.
While
blah, blah.
looking at the computer, or looking at me, but moving her hand, and
or
I'm like,
I'm looking up and looking down, looking at my binder, and like, yeah, this happened. And oh my gosh, can you believe it? And then Joel didn't like my dinner or something,
He had the audacity.
And she's giving me her full attention, listening to my story. And then, she starts telling me her day, and she will stop what she's doing and she will look at me and she'll have a conversation. And we had conversations about it early on in our relationship, how she was like, it's a pet peeve of mine that you don't give me your full attention, that you don't look me in the eyes when I talk to you. So then as I realize it's her time to talk, I'm like, so how was your day?
You can see her hand twitching every time. Like,
and I'm all like, I'm just trying. I've learned this. I don't know if this is a good thing or a bad thing. I've learned how to text without looking at my screen. So I've been able to text and send a message under the table.
Well, she's talking to
And
me.
I'm talking when I've done it to her. And I'm just like, and and like it's so funny because she really gives me her full attention, but you were saying multitasking.
But it's because it's for two reasons. One, I can't do it. I can't text and talk to you, and I can't listen to you when I'm working.
Right.
So I'd rather do one, and the other one is because at home, my mom is very much like that. My mom is very much like, when I'm talking to you, you need to look at me in the eyes. When, like, y es que ha habido veces que I'm watching TV and she's talking to me y me dice, no me escuchaste, huh? Y le dije, no, ma, pues estoy viendo la tele. Y dice, exacto. Si te estoy hablando, es para que le pongas pause. Y yo, oh, okay. Ahora sí, mami, ¿qué pasó? So it's just a habit of like, give people your undivided attention, I guess. Pero bottom line, no, I can multitask. Pero I would say multitask in the sense of like, you're managing not just your time, but you're managing, in going back to ministry, you're managing an event. You're managing, parents of that said event. You're managing, a list of that event. You're managing
Your
a lot of
personal
different
time.
things.
If you're
exactly
working, if you're
your
at
personal
school.
time, if you're dating, your dating life.
Yeah.
When you were getting married, your wedding. So it's not just the ministry, it's not the personal, it's tu trabajo.
Yeah.
You're managing different tasks. You have different hats. And, at church, when, because when you were, because we are also employees, there are times where it's very confusing when you take off your hat of the admin and when you put on your hat of this is my ministry, right? So because the lines get blurred sometimes because you're managing different tasks that sometimes collide with each other. That sometimes, I'm supposed to do this list, not just out of my admin responsibilities, but because out of my ministry. I'm also in that ministry. So a lot of different things happen like that. Entonces, yo me ha tocado que, y me toca hacer esto, y me toca hacer aquello. Pero también, I can't neglect this and I can't neglect that. And so, es eso.
If you ever see Lula going, she's multitasking.
Yeah, I'm trying to say, okay, what's next? And I feel like I oftentimes, no sé, a lo mejor, la gente va a tener su propia opinión, pero a veces parece on Sundays que nada más I'm just looking busy, but I'm not actually busy. Like I'm just, I'm just looking like, this. Pero a lot of the times, sí, estoy ocupada, pero otras times is because son tiny things, tiny tasks that I'm like, someone asked me for this. Let me go. And then estoy allá y, someone asked me for this. Let me go do that. And so, entonces, sí me ha pasado que a veces it looks like I'm a chicken. ¿Cómo le dicen?
A chicken without a head.
A chicken without a head. It's like, esto y aquello. Pero es porque no puedo hacer a lot of things.
But you've learned multitasking.
But I've learned some type of multitasking. Y, what has happened to me, though, is that I'll be writing an email when you're talking to me, and I'll be writing while you're talking. What you're telling
crazy.
me. And so por eso es que I'm like, okay, no, I need to stop. I can't do that.
Estoy dando ahí el chisme de mi vida, and then there she sends the email.
Joel said this. Oh, what? No. and or vice versa. I'm telling you a story y se me ocurre hacer un email while I'm telling you the story, and I'm writing the story. I'm writing what I'm telling you. And I'm like, no, this is why yo no puedo hacer two things at the same time. Pero I can multitask better. Yes, for sure. And so patience is another one that I think goes along with what you were saying with working with people. You learn to manage people's character and your own character as well. So for me, I'm still working on my patience. I'm not a very I feel like I've gotten better. Pero de todas maneras, patience is not my virtue. And so I really have to be intentional about my patience. But I do think that anyone who's in leadership should have good, patience, and or at least should try to have patience. Por lo mismo de que estás trabajando con gente que tiene diferentes opiniones, que tiene diferentes, not just opinions, pero the way to go about it is different,
I think, as you were saying that, I think also like being a part of a team or a ministry also teaches you that you're not the person that knows all the answers to how to fix something or how to perfect a ministry. I right now, if you watch our podcasts, Jules, I'm going to throw your name out there. Working with her in ministry and in the work area, there was a lot of things that she would just shine with her ideas, because she has a lot of creativity, especially with design, decor and stuff. And so, I am a fairly confident person. And so,
as you've seen, as she's proven in previous podcasts.
So I had to learn in that season of my life to let someone else shine, and let someone else get credit that was very well deserved, and I think that helps, as a person, when you learn to work with other people, that it's not all about you, and it's better if you care enough for the ministry or the task at hand, whatever it is. You could apply this to other areas in your life. It's important that if you care about what matters, that if this person has a better idea than you, we all win, because we care enough about what we're doing that it's okay, as opposed to I'm going to sacrifice the ministry becoming better or whatever it is that you're doing to become better just because I want to be the one to have all the ideas.
Because that wasn't my idea.
Exactly. So I think even in that, it built my character being in ministry. But, I was going to ask you, because for me, I grew up in church and I grew up in being a part of different ministries. Do you think that because, even though you did grow up in church, but there was that, brief, moment, catch low points, if you want to know more about Lula's story, did you see the value of being part of a group, or do you think you were able to do without it?
I see it now. Well, when I was a child, of course, en Mexico, en nuestra iglesia en la que nosotros crecimos, children's ministry was huge. It was lit. Like every summer school, we wanted to be there. It was just like, oh my God, Mom, llévanos. And so for us, children's ministry, I don't know how much I can say this, but I can tell you this. The first time I learned to care for my body, as in like, have boundaries of no, not anyone can touch me, not anyone, no, I need to care for me, was at church, was in children's ministry. We were shown a video and it's so vivid in my head que todavía me acuerdo del video and how they presented to us, because you're the temple of Christ, tienes que cuidar tu cuerpo, y que nadie te toque y que nadie te haga sentir incómodo. And so that to me, it was powerful when I was a child, because then I started learning, I should be doing this and I should be doing it as a child. And I think, they did a splendid job when I was growing up in children's ministry. So I say that, a mí me gustaba mucho el children's ministry. I was like, oh my God, and
you were learning.
I was learning, and no nomás se preocupaban por la Biblia, se preocupaban por everyday things that happen to children. Me acuerdo que nos decían, si te sientes triste, habla con papá Dios. Y todo eso era como, really? He's listening? And so they would give us a lot of consciousness of, there is someone that's going to listen to you.
Yeah.
Y nos decían, nos decían, Jesús es tu mejor amigo, habla con él. Y, o sea, I don't know. I think back and I thought I really enjoyed my time at church in children's ministry. Now, as an older person, I see the value in being a part of a ministry in the sense of, I think we mentioned it at the beginning, te das cuenta que tus problemas no son solamente tuyos, que también hay gente que vive o pasa situaciones que son más común de lo que tú pensabas, ¿verdad? Entonces, que están viviendo por la misma situación y a veces hasta te das cuenta, wow, yo ni sabía que esa persona estaba pasando por eso. And it almost humbles you. Because it's like, man, yo aquí pensando que yo soy la única que sufre, que yo soy la única que está pasando por esto, y te das cuenta que no, sabes que alguien más le está dando ansiedad, alguien más está viviendo temor o está viviendo, no sé, un momento donde se siente triste, donde se siente decaído, y no solamente yo.
Right.
Y no solamente te trae, I think it sort of goes to what you were saying of like you let someone else shine. It goes to that mentality of like, no soy la única víctima o no soy la pobrecita de mí, no soy la mártir. Hay muchos más y como hay muchos más o como hay más gente, puedo salir adelante porque veo que esa persona no está dejando que se derrote, veo que esa persona está saliendo adelante, ni siquiera se le notaba. ¿Por qué? Porque están tratando día con día de salir adelante. Entonces, siento que te ayuda en that sense of we're all in this together and I'm not anything special. So, a salir adelante.
You know, even though we are obviously in favor and we see the benefits of being in ministry and being a part of the group, can you share on some of the cons of being in ministry?
Even though it's a good thing, I do think that being held to a higher standard can be
Pressure?
Can be pressuring. Yeah, can be even limiting. And I think can also creating you a sense of I need to be almost perfect, santa. And I do think que hay personas que they carry themselves with this air of I'm holier than thou. And y no es to bash them, pero it sort of is like como le dicen en inglés, it's en español le dicen gajes del oficio, pero es sort of like it comes with a job and a thing. It's like a byproduct of being held to a different standard, that because you are held to a different standard and there are people that really hold themselves to that standard, there's no room for failure almost, you know? There's no room for like imperfection almost. Y entonces sí, les llega una situación donde alguien está lidiando con algo fuerte y ay, no, se escandalizan. And I think that is detrimental. Cuando no alcanzas a entender a otra persona porque tú te crees que no, hombre, o sea, yo estoy acá, yo soy la última coca en el desierto.
Right.
Y no puedes conectar con la otra persona that's having a hard time, you know?
Porque hacemos pecados chiquitos
y pecados grandes.
And there's
exacto.
No such thing.
Y no. And so I do think que when you're held to a higher standard and you
lose your humanity.
You sort of sí te la empiezas a creer, porque a lo mejor sí estás viviendo una vida muy, muy recta y qué bueno, pero a veces la gente por la mayoría no es gente de balance, la gente se va a los extremos. Entonces tienes gente que ya no puede conectar con alguien that's dealing with alcoholism or that's dealing with lying, you know, that's dealing with whatever, you name it.
Right.
Porque tú dices, no, yo nunca haría eso.
Right.
Yo soy líder y yo nunca pensaría así.
Yeah.
Y yo pienso, no sé, a lo mejor yo estoy mal, quizás se da.
Esta es nuestra opinión.
Pero yo pienso que cuando tú te empiezas a poner, yo nunca haría eso, you would do it. You set yourself up for failure. Yo soy de la mentalidad que uno siempre tiene que pensar, ¿sabes qué? Todos somos capaces de hacer todo si estuviera en esa situación. Yo así pienso. Que es lo que me ayuda a decir, ¿sabes qué? I would have reacted that same way had I been in that situation too.
Más bien, entonces, tú no sabes cómo vas a reaccionar si estuvieras en esa
situación. Exacto. Entonces,
hubieras reaccionado peor.
Yes. Entonces, yo siento que a veces ese es se podría decir como un con of being held to a higher standard, que ya no puedes empatizar con la demás gente. Te escandalizas de todo. Y otro que my rough people's feathers is burned out. I do think that I do think que hay personas que volvemos a lo mismo. They wear different hats y te cansas. Y es normal. Pero sí he visto que hay veces en que that ministry means a lot to them, que they're not willing to let go. Y está bien, pero a veces cuando you become sort of like cuando no quieres dejarlo ir, pero ya te está haciendo daño y by default tú también le estás haciendo daño al ministry. I do think que ahí es cuando you need to be like, okay, I need to let it go because I'm just burned out.
Yeah.
And so I do think que those can be the cons. And I mean, cons come
With
cons
everything.
with everything. And not just that, pero me refiero a they're very subjective. Porque para una persona a lo mejor puede decir, no, pero ¿cómo me voy a dejar? ¿Verdad? No, ¿cómo voy a lidiar con tanta gente? A lo mejor there are people that aren't people. You know, they don't like people. And so,
okay.
they don't like
People
people.
person.
People, there you go, people person. And so they don't like people. Entonces, si tú sabes que no puedes lidiar con eso y no es algo con lo que tú puedas cambiar o que tú digas, sabes que lo voy a cambiar, pues entonces no te metas ahí. Yo así lo pienso yo. Pero what about you? What are some cons?
I think I agree with you. Burned out was at the top of my con list because I've lived it. And I think it really depends on where you're at, what you're going through in life. I've mentioned this 1,000 times before. When I lost my dad, I was still serving in ministry and I didn't want to let go, you know, and I think part of it was because I had served in the past in so many different areas and I love serving. That's the truth. And I see the benefit of being involved. And I didn't want to deal with what was going on in my life. I wanted to still kind of, you know, make it happen. And so, you know, once I came to terms of like, no, I'm going through something, I need a break. I let go. And I also saw how the ministry thrived with different leadership, you know, and I think it's because it was people that one had the time and the headspace, but were passionate about it. And I think I was in that position, not so much out of passion, but out of maybe a little bit of, well, I've done ministries before, I've created systems before that have worked. And I think that if I implement the same system, I could make this fairly successful. And I think maybe that's a little bit of ego and self-assurance. And then this situation happens and I realize like, no, I need to face what's going on. And I think that's the best example I could give the youth at that time, that you need to deal with what's going on. Why am I going to put myself in a position and appear to be something that I'm not? And at that time, I could not express an example of strength, maybe, because I was going through a lot. And so burnt out, I think, happens a lot because you don't want to deal with what's really going on. There's things that happen and we have to deal with them. Loss, you know, there's just different things, different struggles. But I also think being burnt out also happens when you're doing too much. And, you know, it also comes from a mindset of like, I can do it all. I can do this and that and that and my job and my career and my relationships. And I'm going to come out on top. And at some point, one of those balls that you're juggling is going to fall. And sometimes 2 or 3 might fall with it because you lost the rhythm. And it's best to do what's within your means. And so 100% I would say burnt out. And I think the other con that I would put in is, unfortunately, when you are, I would say, more in a leadership position, how do I put this? You don't always meet the need that the ministry needs, but you meet the need that you want to meet, if that makes sense. So sometimes I think that when you're in leadership, because of out of excitement or out of, you know, I don't know, you know, maybe you're just like, I can make this ministry the way that I want it because you're in charge. You won't really look at what the group needs, you know. And so you'll be like, for example, just a simple example, you know, I feel like the youth, you know, if I'm in youth ministry, I feel like they need more more events, you know, more outings, more, you know, just hangouts. We got to take them this place and that place, and we got to take them to Six Flags or whatever. And really what the ministry needs, because a lot of your youth are struggling with depression and anxiety, and you focus on one area but you're completely missing out what's really necessary. And I think that happens a lot when you're out of touch with the group and you're kind of doing your own thing, or you're maybe out of touch with the leadership around you that is there to counsel you and say, hey, this is how I think we should do, you know, this and this. And I think that sometimes that happens, because it's happened to me in the past. I think when I was in life groups and cell groups, I think that was my trenches for a lot of things. I made a lot of mistakes when I was in life group. Even what you were saying about, you know, no longer being able to relate with people. I experienced that. I was 18 and I was a little conceited, and I was a little high up in my horse, and I pensaba que era la más santa del mundo. And so I think even in that, sometimes I tried to meet needs that people weren't, you know, really needing. It was something else. And so I became irrelevant. I became it became harder for me to connect with them. And so I would just say that that's another con of, like, knowing, you know, what you're really trying to do. Why are you in this ministry? Why are you trying to serve? What are you trying to help?
Hold on. Before you move on to the other question, ahorita me puse a pensar que otra cosa que, in a good way, in the pros, that ministry does for you is that it prepares you for marriage.
Oh, 100%.
Right?
Give your example how. Pero give your example how.
Submission. And, you know, people out there might have a hard time with submission and might think, oh my God, submission, it's 2023. But
you submit to your boss, don't you?
Exactly. You submit to the authorities. Well, you know, some people do. Generally speaking. But submission, I guess, in biblical terms, is, you know, you surrender. And not just because. You surrender because, like, for example, in a relationship with God, you surrender to God. You submit to God because, hey, you know better. Take the wheel, Jesus, you know, kind of thing. And in that sense, submission is a really good thing.
Yeah.
Porque no podemos hacerlo todos. And so when it comes to, and I think it goes to what you were saying, no puedo yo hacerlo todo en un ministry. I have to submit to someone, ya sea to my pastor that's telling me you can do this, or how about you do that, or do this, you know, or you can submit to the other council that are telling you, I don't think that's the right thing, or how about we do this?
Yeah.
I see more, you know, I don't know, more, ¿cómo se dice? Return in doing X, Y, Z. So submitting is when you start submitting in that sense, as a woman at least, perhaps for a man it's different, but as a woman, it prepares you to, I will submit to my husband.
Yeah.
When he's telling me, you know what, perhaps that dress isn't the greatest idea to wear to church, you know? You can wear it somewhere else.
Just as much as those shorts are not really good for you to wear. Those sweatpants,
you know?
También, you know?
And so I do think that when, as a woman, and in me, yo lo puedo ver en mí, submission has done a good number on me. Given my character and given how I tend to be, you know, to almost be rebellious, submission has done that of, like, no, I need to submit. Sí, cierto, tiene razón, porque quiero hacerlo como yo lo quiero hacer. O sea, si esto suena, logically speaking, this sounds like a better idea, why not go with that?
Yeah.
Let's just go with that. ¿Qué tiene, you know? And so submission, at least for me, has worked in the sense of, like, what? I don't even know, but I already know. I don't even know what you're going to say, but I already know. Say it. Just say it. Speak from your chest.
It's because as she was going to say her thought, you just heard this really strong. I'm sorry. I just I couldn't hold it in.
We're being silly, guys. We're being silly. Anyway.
Continue. Please continue with your thought.
Now I don't know.
You're talking about submission.
Yeah, I was talking about submission. So now I feel confident, even though I'm speaking in faith, guys. I'm speaking in faith, even though I'm not married. And, you're here. You can tell me if it's not like that. But I feel confident that once I get to that stage in my life, I'll be able to say, you know what? Yes, you're right. I'm not going to do that. You know what? Yes, you're right, or whatever. Yes, que va a haber otras ocasiones where I'll be like, I don't know. How about we do it my way, But at least ya no tengo esa mentalidad de my way or the highway,
Yeah.
And I think for me that's a plus. That's not a minus. That's a huge plus of like I'm finding out that I'm able to submit aunque no lo quiera hacer o aunque no I don't necessarily agree. Pero I can say, you know what? Let's do that. Why not?
I think some things prepare you for marriage, just like life, I guess, okay, here's what I think about that. I do think some things like submission will teach you, in marriage. But I also think that sometimes life has a tendency of throwing you something over and over again because you struggle in that area, if that makes sense. And so you haven't fully learned, mastered that. For me, it's patience. It's my tongue. It's holding my tongue. It's being impulsive. A lot of the things that I struggle with or predicaments that I find myself in has a lot to do with because I don't have patience or because I said the wrong thing again because I just talk. And so I think that that might have been what you have gotten out of ministry and you're applying that
right
for your future.
Yeah.
I think for me and things that I saw that it helped me with my marriage and is still helping me is holding my tongue. I think in understanding disagreements, understanding criticism, constructive criticism, especially for when you create something, you put time into it, effort into it. It's not always appreciated. And it's in those moments where you're like, why am I doing this? I'm doing this for the Lord. The word tells us, don't let your left hand know what your right hand is doing, or vice versa. Or when you're fasting, don't, look disheveled, put your best clothes on so that people don't know that you're fasting. In other words, if you're going to do something, do it unto the Lord and don't do it so you can try to get credit from people. And I think in marriage, that does apply to me. A lot of the things that you do for your husband is out of love, and it's out of trying to honor your marriage, and there are times that I cooked a meal that took me an hour and a half, and I love my husband, for the record, and there are times he's just like, and you're just like I'm gonna throw it all away because how dare you? I work so hard, just as much as in a ministry, you work hard to, bring an event forward, and depending on what your audience is, youth don't like it, the parents don't like it, and you're like, but did you know the months of planning it took to make this, the funds, what we fundraised for? And so I think that in that way, it helped me of like learning some things just aren't appreciated, and it's okay, because in this life, unfortunately, you're not going to be appreciated for every single thing. And when you are, then it makes it that much more sweeter, because if you were appreciated for everything that you do, when they're really trying to show you this great appreciation, you'll be like, it's just another Tuesday.
I was waiting for it.
I was waiting for it.
Yeah.
I mean, come on, ya se tardaron, But I think it's in those moments where it also reminds you who you're doing it for.
You're really touching on a really good point, because I do think we live in a world where we're telling people you need to be appreciated. You need to feel appreciated in marriage.
Just wanna be appreciated. Yeah.
You need to be in marriage, in your friendships, in your work, y todo esto, y le estamos diciendo a la gente, we constantly feed people this idea of like, it's a must. If you don't have that, walk away from your marriage, walk away from your kids, walk away from whatever, and
job,
from your job, y todo eso. And I don't think that's the right attitude. I think the right attitude is like, it's what you're saying. it's okay.
Con balance, gente.
Sí, con
Siempre
balance.
decimos eso, con balance.
Con balance. Porque también, obviamente, no te puedes pasar toda tu vida estando
ahí
en el
están
piso.
detrás de- ajá,
estando en el piso. No, tampoco. Siempre se llega el tiempo para todos. Y también, sí, ¿por qué no? Hay momentos en que si es tu husband, le tienes que decir, hey, I haven't been feeling appreciated. Give me something, give me some love.
But it shouldn't be your first response to,
Yeah,
lárgate
exactly.
ya,
Pero what I was saying is, en la sociedad y en estos tiempos, I do think there's this air of like, si no te sientes, y todos feeling, y los hechos son diferentes. Facts are different.
Yeah.
Pero si no te sientes appreciated or loved or whatever, ¿qué estás haciendo ahí? And I don't think that's the right attitude. We need to come back to, it's okay. Especially, and I do think we as women tend to have that more of an issue of like, quiero que me aprecie sin yo decirle.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I think eso es super detrimental porque men are very different from women. Mm-hmm. Men don't think that way. Men think, you tell me what to do, I'll do it. Y eso no está mal. And we as women, we think, si le digo que lo haga y lo hace, ya no está bien.
It doesn't mean.
It doesn't mean anything porque le dije que lo tenía que hacer. Pero the truth of the matter es que si quieres un poco de apreciación, tienes que pedir esa apreciación a veces. Y está bien. Y está bien que otras veces no la pidas y no te sientas apreciada. Y está bien que otras veces te va a venir la appreciation sin que tú lo pidas.
Yeah.
Ese es el balance, ¿verdad? El balance es también decir, bueno, pues mi esposo no es un genio. He's not going to think, I'm thinking for her. He's not going to guess my thoughts. And I think a lot of times eso también lo podemos aplicar en el trabajo, con nuestras amigas. You and I, recently, we had a conversation of like, I don't feel appreciated and for what I do. And it'd be nice if every once in a while you could, appreciate it. Y la otra respondió con, I'll do that.
She's putting out our dirty laundry out there. Catch the next episode to see what I put out, eh?
Y la otra respondió con, okay, I'll do that. I can show you appreciation. It's just not going to be every single time. ¿Y qué dijiste tú? It's okay.
That's fine.
That's fine. And then didn't you tell me in fact, I don't want it every single time because it can be burdensome. Because now it's going to, exactly, because now it's not going to feel genuine. Now it's going to feel like, I have to do this porque no lo quiero que se sienta mal. No. Y entonces fue ahí con when we both agreed, you're right. Yo no lo puedo hacer every single time. Mm-mm. And you're okay with that porque si fuera every single time no sería bueno tampoco.
Yeah.
And so, pero we could only do that through communication. Had we not had that uncomfortable conversation, we wouldn't have learned that you're okay with me not appreciating you every single time. And you wouldn't have known that I'm capable of appreciating you more than what I have done.
Right.
Nada más not every single time. Mm-hmm. And so, lo mismo puede ser con una relationship, con un, in ministry even también, since we're talking about ministry. So I went off on that tangent. But coming back to that is you're not always going to be appreciated. Your work is not always going to be appreciated. And that's okay.
To put a small parenthesis for those of you that struggle with sometimes feeling underappreciated, a good way to counter that or to work with that in yourself, I would say ask yourself, are you appreciating? Because I think that sometimes that's mm-hmm. also a downfall for those of us that are more needy or more wanting of that affirmation. I don't think it's a bad thing, but I think that a lot of the times we focus on where we're lacking and we don't realize that we don't always give that off to others, and especially in marriage, in relationships, and in ministry, of course, leadership is a lot of responsibility and it requires a lot of time and effort and commitment. But then you also have to look back and like, okay, just as much as I want to be appreciated for what I did I appreciate those under my leadership? Mm-hmm. Did I appreciate those who are my peers in leadership? Did I appreciate my pastor, the ministers in the church for what they do? Have I looked into really taking the time to wonder, how much does pastor do for the church? How much does his family do for the church? And so, at the same time, it's a double-edged sword with that one, but continue.
And I think with everything, también tenemos que, we need to look within ourselves. You know, si quieres algo, are you giving that? Are you giving that? Porque también tú no puedes dar lo que no tienes y no puedes pedir lo que no estás dando.
Yeah.
And so, todo eso, all this to say, guys, just to, you know,
Ministry is fun.
just to finalize, is that ministry is good.
Yeah.
Ministry is important, but it's difficult. It's hard work. And at times it can be very trying. However, I do think that because, and I can say this for both of us, because we've grown as people, we've grown in our spirituality. Oh, porque ministry leads you to pray.
Oh,
leads you to be like, you know what, God?
Cámbiame, Señor.
Cámbiame, Señor. I can only work with what I can do. Lo demás is within your hands,
Y a
¿verdad?
la vez, Señor, yo no la puedo cambiar, entonces tú
Cámbiala.
cámbiala.
Entonces tú cámbiala, perdón, Señor. Pero cuando sales de todo eso y te pones a ver, I'm better than last year, I'm better than 2 months ago, I'm better than, you know, whatever. It is very it is very rewarding.
Yeah.
No self-rewarding. It is very, very rewarding and very, you know, it's just, I don't think, I mean, again, very personal, pero I don't think cuando eres una persona que aprecia el progreso, que aprecia el proceso también, no creo que haya una persona que diga, I wouldn't do it again.
No, of course. If you become a better person.
Pienso que if you've become a better person and that situation brought you closer to God, you would probably say, I would do it again.
Yeah.
Si eso me va a traer this much benefit, I would do it again. So,
and I would, you know, as we begin to close, I would even say that we're all talking about this because also we mentioned, you know, the primary goal is for us to spread our faith. It's to spread what we know about Jesus. But there's also scripture that says that we're a body of Christ. You know, each and every one of us play a part in trying to make this work, you know, and the Bible does say, you know, the hand is not greater than the foot is not greater than the eye. You know, can you say, I don't need the eye and I'm going to see with my hand? You can't. And so I think even in that, there's a lesson that regardless of where you're involved, you know, whether you're at the most famous or popular group in ministry or the one that doesn't really get a lot of recognition, you need both in order to function and to do the mission, which is spreading the good news, which is what we're talking about, you know. And so we hope to encourage you, you know, if you're not in ministry, you know, start with just being involved in the group, you know, start by, you know, if you don't go to church, start there, you know, but if you are and you're like, I don't know if I can connect with others, there's always someone that you can connect with. Trust me, you'll find, or you'll create your group to start being, okay, I noticed nobody really talks to so-and-so. I'm going to be that person, you know? And then if you've already, you know, gotten to that point, you know, consider being in leadership, consider, you know, assisting in what you can, and hope that you took a little bit from our experiences and our 2 cents in this topic of, you know, we could say it's a conviction of ours to be involved in ministry. Maybe you can't do it in every season of your life, but it's definitely a conviction of ours that it's an important part of the Christian walk.
Yes, it is. So, guys, thank you so much for the support and love. Thank you so much for listening to our opinions, even when they're wrong, even when they are lacking, even if we come off as you know, illiterate, and definitely different. Thank you. We really appreciate every single one of you. Please subscribe if you haven't. Follow us on Instagram, on Spotify, on YouTube. Well, I just said subscribe. Leave us comments. We always are having fun looking at the comments. And so see you next time. Bye.